Well, I'm glad to see you in my shop. I'm Earl. This is Earl's Small Segment Shop. I want to make a quick little video, not long, on segments and segment rings. In other words, making a segment and drawing them into rings. And go over the basics, but get a little bit in depth with them and try and explain what little I know about it. So, first thing I'm going to do is explain exactly what a segment is and how to determine what size it is in all three directions. This is an exaggerated example of a segment. Segments, of course, are pieces that are glued together in order to turn a circle, make a ring. Of course, you're not gluing them into a circle. For instance, if I decided I wanted to make a 4-segment ring, 4 segments glued together would make a square. You're going to have to turn it into a ring. If you like 8 segments glued together, it's an octagon. It's not a circle. It has to be turned into a circle. So this is what a segment is. I think this one's cut at an angle for 16 or 20. I'm not sure. So a segment has got 3 dimensions. The length, which is the cut length, the height of it, and then the width. Now, 2 of the dimensions is very easy to figure. First, the height. That's simple. It's however high you want the ring, your segment ring. Of course, you make it a little bit more so you can sand it flat. If I want a 3/4 of an inch ring, I might cut the segments to 7/8 inch. The length is very simple. You look on your cheat sheet and you say, okay, I got 16 segments per ring and I want a 6-inch ring. So I look on my cheat sheet, so I got to cut them to 1.1934. That's very simple. That's the length you cut it to. The third dimension, the width, is the one that's a little trickier. If you're making a turning, it's got fairly straight sides. Then you only need to make the width just a little bit bigger than the thickness of the side you want. However, if you're making a turning with curved sides or straight sides at an angle, then they've got to be bigger to cover that angle. And of course, if you want to make a turning with less than 16 segments per ring, 12 or 8 or whatever, you've got to consider the curve through the segment. The curve that comes through, you've got to add that on. 16 segments and above, 20, 24, 30, 32, 36. You don't really have to worry about that. So the width is determined basically by the thickness of the turning sidewall and the angle. And you can draw it out real easy, like this, to figure out just how wide you need each segment. I always draw them out very simple. just one side of the turning. I don't need both sides, just one side, and draw them out. So that is how you figure out the dimensions of a segment. So now we know how to figure the dimensions of a segment. The important thing on segments is tight joints. I've seen a lot of good segment turning ruined because of a joint, one or more joints that weren't tight. I've seen lots of them. So it's important to get all your joints tight. In order to get the joints tight, you have to have a smooth gluing surface. Now, when I first started making segment turnings, my table saw wasn't all that great. So I would take and sand each segment just a little bit on a disc sander. Make a push stick. With the angles I needed for each one. A sled that slides on it, and a push stick. Push them up. And sand each one lightly, very lightly, just enough to get the edges smooth. Of course, now I've got a much better saw. It's not the most expensive saw, but it's a good cast iron saw. It's got a belt-driven motor. I've got a good 80-tooth carbide blade in it. So I'm going to take these two blocks of different wood. They're the same height and same width. I'm going to cut them both. I'm going to use an angle that would be for 16 segments. I'm going to show how smooth the cut is, and I'm going to glue them together with a rub joint. I'm going to glue them so that they're straight in line. After they dry, I'm going to sand them and show just how tight a joint there is. But if you can't get a good smooth surface, a good alternative is just to lightly sand each one. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these and see what kind of cut I get off my table saw. I cut these two pieces at an angle with a good 80-tooth carbide blade, and they're both perfectly smooth and flat. Absolutely. They fit together perfectly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue them together with a rub joint. After I glue them together with a rub joint, I'm going to let them dry. Then I'm going to sand them to show just how good and flat that joint is. Just a touch of glue. Tight down quick and thick for this. Not much glue, just a touch. And I'll make a rub joint. Smear the glue all over. Way too much glue. But then rub them together. Rub them together until I get resistance. put them together, hump them for a minute, then just let them dry. Okay, I waited 15 minutes. Then I sanded all four sides flat. Check the joint. The joint is tight, all four sides. So, with a good saw and a good blade, you can get nice, flat, smooth joints. Or you can always sand them if they're not perfectly flat and smooth. Now, what I'm going to say is going to upset a lot of people. They're going to throw up their defensive wall. They're going to deny it. They're going to find reasons why it can't be true. They're going to quit watching my channel. I cut this with an 80-tooth carbide blade. Now, when I started, I was told to get good cuts, you needed to buy a good quality blade. And I did. I bought a $140 80-tooth carbide tip blade. I ain't going to say which company, but a major company. And it made beautiful cuts. Made perfect cuts, just like that. Beautiful. Smooth, flat. But one day, I was in Harbor Freight. My blade was getting off. Actually got warped a little bit. Wasn't making good cuts. And I seen an 82 carbide blade, and I bought it just out of curiosity what it'd do. That blade is a Harbor Freight blade. Made beautiful, tight cuts. I don't care. People are going to deny it, but that is a Harbor Freight blade. On a fairly decent saw, it makes good, flat, tight cuts. And I've been using Harbor Freight blades ever since. And I'm getting good results. Okay, enough of that. So, the next thing is, to get good, tight rings, there's two ways of gluing them up. There's the half ring glue up method and the single glue up method. The half ring glue up method guarantees that you get good tight joints, considering you got good flat joints to start with. But it ensures they're all tight joints. The trouble with the half ring glue up is it's easy to get an oval shaped ring. I can show you one here shortly. The single glue up method is you've got to check them, dry clamp them, and make sure they're tight before you glue them. If they're not tight, you got to adjust the angle on one. And we're going to do that too. So the first thing I'm going to have to do is cut some segments. I'm going to have to make a little project to use the ring. Cutting segments. There's many ways to cut the segments. I do it the easiest way of all. I use a sled with an adjustable fence. Now I cut over 20 different angles of segments for both open and closed segments. 16, 20, 24, 30, 32, 36, 40, etc. So, I have this, a digital angle finder. It's from eye gauging. I get a still picture of it. Very, very accurate. So I use that to set my fence. Initially, once I set the fence and make a good cut with it, then I take a scratch out and scratch a mark and color code it for what it is so I can go right back to it very easily. So I got a base for a small turning. It's rosewood. I'm going to make a rosewood turning. Cut a piece of rosewood off here to make segment. It's way too thick, but I'm going to use it anyway. So the base is almost 4.5 inches, about 4.5 inches across. I got it dished out. I got the edge turned flat. I sanded it flat. It's got to be flat. So I'm going to make the first segment with this half ring glue up method. Now, half ring glue up method, there's a good chance that it might come out oval if I ain't careful. But I'm going to make a half ring glue up method. I got my fence set up at 11.25 degrees cut angle. I'm going to make the first ring 4 3/4 inch. Looking at my cheat sheet, 4 3/4 inch, 16 segments, going to be cut at 0.9448, 0.95, close enough. So I'm going to set this at 0.95. And I'm going to cut 16 segments, and then we're going to glue them up in a half ring glue up method. I got 16 segments cut. First thing I'm going to do is glue them into pairs. Glue 2 together, glue 2 more together, glue 2 more until I get 8 pairs glued up. So I'm going to take 2. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on them, not too much. And smear the glue around. Make sure it's everywhere. And I'm going to make a rub joint, rub them back and forth. So they get tight. Line them up. Hold them clamped together for a few seconds. And set them aside, let them dry. So I'm going to go ahead and glue all of them up into pairs. Okay, I got them all glued into pairs. 8 pairs. So the ones that I glued up first are dry enough now. They've set for a good 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I can glue them into 4s. Glue the pairs together. So again, same thing. Little touch of glue. Not much. Make sure it's spread around good. A rub joint. Some of this excess glue way too much. Line them up. Hold them for a few seconds. Put them off to the side. So I'm going to glue them all up into 4s. They're glued into 4s. I've waited about 5 minutes. Now I'm going to glue them into 8s. Make half rings out of them. 8 will make a half ring. If I was making 20 segments per ring, I'd glue them up in a combination that would have 10 segments. Or if I was doing 24 segments per ring, I'd glue them up to have 12 segments. But I'm going to glue these together and get 2 half rings of 8 segments. The same way, spread the glue, make a rub joint, get off some of this excess glue, line them up, clamp them for a few seconds, and set them aside. I got 2 half rings. Got to join them into a ring. But the joints don't made up flat. So I chalk them. Chalk them good. After I chalk them, I'm going to take them to this sander. I'm going to sand both sides at the same time, just until the chalk's gone, no more. I want to take off the minimum amount of wood that's necessary. So I'm going to take them over to the sander. Sand both sides at once, just like that. Both sides at once, just until the chalk's gone. That's all. Okay, I sanded the chalk off, and they made up perfect now. So I put a little glue on them, then I'm going to clamp them. Yeah, not too much glue. A little bit. Clean up my glue bottle. Never forget to clean off your glue bottle. Quit running, damn it. Loop the glue around a little bit. Look it around good. Let's clamp them down. Put a segmented clamp on it. Clamp her down. Sure they're lined up and flat. Good, tighten her. Tighten her down. Looking good, looking good. See if it come out oval or not. Look pretty good, pretty much straight. Hang it up and let it dry. I've got one ring made. using a half ring glue up method, a 4 3/4 inch ring. I'm going to make another ring, 5-inch ring. I'm going to do it by doing it all up at one time. It's a 5-inch, 16 segments per ring, 0.9945. 0.99, just make it 1. One inch. I'm going to set it up, same cut angle. I'm going to cut 16 segments. Now, single glue up, of course, is my preferred method. First thing you do is dry clamp them. Dry clamp them, hold them to the light, look for any gaps. No gaps, you can feel them. If they're loose at the top and tight at the bottom, that means you need a little bit more angle on one. If they're tight at the top and loose at the bottom, it means you need a little less angle on one. Well, of course, if there's a gap, what I do, I take a segment that needs adjusting, chalk it, take it to the disc sander. Now, these are 16 segments per ring. I would use my 16 segment push plug. I've got tape to adjust it. Get it right. But if I wanted more angle, what I would do is put a shim at the top and sand it to get more angle. If I wanted less angle, I put a shim at the bottom and sand it to get less angle, just enough to remove all the chalk. So, I'm going to pretend my ring is tight. I'm going to pretend that I got a loose at the top, so I'm going to need more angle. I'm going to put a shim on it, and I'm going to sand it. Got a shim at the top. I want to sand it just until the chalk's gone. Just that much. The chalk's gone. Change the angle a little bit, and I would put it in the ring. But of course, mine's tight. They're all tight. Sometimes, if you get a big gap, you have to adjust 2 segments, or even 3 maybe. Wow. So, I'm going to go ahead and glue up this ring. I've got 2 rings made, both with tight joints. I said before, and I'll say it again, I've seen too many good turnings ruined by bad joint or joints. So I got 2 rings made, both 2 different ways. Both got real tight joints. Now, you've got to glue them into a turning. And again, you have to have tight joints. I've seen the joints between rings that were not tight. Beautiful turnings ruined just because of a bad joint. So you got to sand these flat. There are many ways you can do it. You can hold it up against a disc sander. You can run it through a drum sander. If you don't have a disc sander, you can make one of these. I got a video on how to make one of these. Homemade wooden faceplate, sandpaper on it, put it on the lathe, hold it up against it and sand it flat. Easy to do. Like I said, there's a video on it. Now, once you get them flattened, everybody will tell you, you stack them up, glue them, put a weight on them. I've done that when I first started. And I don't like it. Don't like it at all. They slip, they slide. It's just a mess. I've got a base made. I'm going to make a little turning with these. Just a small turning. I've got a base dished out, flattened on the edge. I'm going to use. There's another way you can flatten these. You can put them in a coal jaws. Put them on a lathe, turn them flat and sand them flat. And when you do that, you get them absolutely flat. I like to do that. I can't always do it because sometimes I got a big turning on the lathe I don't want to remove. I use the drum sander instead. But I like this method because they get absolutely perfectly flat. And what I'm going to do, and the way I do it, is on one side flat, just one side. Then I'm going to put them in the coal jaws, bring them up to the base, put glue on them, bring them up to the base and glue them on. The coal jaws will keep them lined up. They can't slip and slide around. And after 15 minutes, that's right, I said 15 minutes, using tight bound, any of the tight bounds, I'm going to use tight bound 2 on these. I can turn the other side of it, flatten it, and glue the next ring on. 15 minutes. So it's quick, it's easy, and they line up. They don't slip and slide. So what I'm going to do, is I'm going to do a video. I'm going to make a video. I'm going to put this on the lathe. I'm going to turn it flat and sand it flat. Then I'm going to glue this one on to this base on the lathe. Now I'm going to turn this flat one side. Actually, I'm going to turn the inside a little bit. Check and see how flat it is. Good. I've turned it flat. Now what I'm going to do is sand it flat. I got it chalked. Put the sanding board up against it. Good and flat against it. All the chalk's gone. It's sanded flat. So now I know it's perfectly flat and ready to be glued on. Got both rings flattened on one side. First ring, I put it in the coal jaws. I got the live center on the back, put it in the tailstock. I've got the base mounted back up on the lathe. What I'm going to do, put glue on here, tight bound tube, put it in the tailstock, bring it up, spin it around a little bit, smear the glue out, clamp it, and leave it set. And after 15 minutes, I'll be able to turn the other side, glue the next ring on. I said 15 minutes, not 24 hours, not 12 hours, not even 1 hour, 15 minutes. I know, everybody will tell you got to leave this for 24 hours. Well, I've always worked it after 15 minutes, and if you've got good flat tight joints, it's never been a problem, ever. I've never had to glue let go. Of course, if you don't have a bad joint, I don't know. I couldn't guarantee what's going to happen. But I've got glue on the ring, about 10 times more glue than what I actually really need. So I'm going to put it in the coal jaws. I'm going to put it in the tailstock, rather. Bring it up. Get that out of the way. Spin it around. Whoa. Trying to dribble. Wow. Like I said, about 10 times what I really need. Dribbling all over the place. Spin it around. Spread it out good. It's spread out good now. Squeeze out's coming out everywhere. Clamp it down. Leave it for 15 minutes and I'll be ready to turn the other side. It's been more than 15 minutes. So I'm going to flatten the edge, turn it flat and sand it. I'm also going to turn the inside some. I don't have to, but I want to so I can get to it easier. So I'm going to hook the camera up, turn the inside some, flatten it, and sand it flat. That actually gets it flatter than the drum sander does. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to turn the edge flat. I'm also going to turn on the inside some while I'm at it. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that. Not the edge. Actually, it's a little bit thicker how I'd like. Let's put it on some. Put it down a little more. Check and see how flat it is. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. It's not flat at all. I should be able to sand that. The first ring has been turned on the inside, then flat, turned flat, and sanded flat. That gets it even flatter than the drum sander will. So now I'm going to glue on the second ring, same way I did the first ring. I'll offset the joints, or bricklay them as we say. Same thing, just put a little glue on it, bring it up with a tailstock. It can't slide around and move, it'll stay right where I put it. And I'll let it set for a while. Both rings are on it now. So I'm going to go ahead and finish turning it. I'm going to tulip it a little bit. Finish turning it. I'll sand it. I'll put some friction polish on it. I'm not going to show all that. That's not what this video is about. But when I'm done, you can see just how tight all the joints are. So I'm just going to go ahead, finish turning it, sanding it. I'm going to go through all the grits of sandpaper like I normally do. I'm going to start with 80 and go all the way through all the grits real quick. If you watch one of my sanding videos, you know it'll only take me a couple of minutes to sand it from rough all the way to glass. I'm going to use a Scotch-Brite pads on it, and I'm going to put friction polish on it. Take no time at all once I get it turned to sand it. That's the easy part. I know, everybody thinks that's a hard part, sanding, but it ain't. If you do it right, that's the easy part. So I'm going to go ahead and complete all of that. So there you have it, on segments and segment rings. No matter how you cut the segments, it's important to glue them into tight joints, invisible joints. I've seen too many a good turnings ruined by a bad joint or bad joints. Not just between segments, but between rings also. No matter how you flatten your rings, you want them good and flat. You want your segments flat-sided. When you glue them, you want to glue them together flat. You don't want to glue them together with a gap. And you want to go beyond 8, 12, 16 segments. You want to go 20, 24, 30, 32 segments. Get more interesting turning. But again, the more segments you got, the harder it is to get good tight joints. So, there's a little turning I made. I put some homemade friction polish on it. Just for curiosity, I'll get a shot of that. So I'm going to end this video here. Next video I do, I think will be on open segments and why they're actually easier than closed segments. Of course, before I make that video, I got to turn this around, finish the bottom of it. So, appreciate you watching, and those that subscribe, I really appreciate. Please come back and see my next video. I'm going to leave my email up here if you got any questions. Also, I got cheat sheets on all the rings per segment that can be done for open segments with the index wheel, all the way up to 92 segments. Of course, it ain't ever one. I mean, there's 12, 16. I don't know if I got 12 on. I got 16. I think I got 12 and 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 30, 32, 36, etc. And I'll send you a cheat sheet if you subscribe and send me an email. Don't leave a comment with an email address. That don't work. So please come back and see my next video.